Good Sunday morning, YouTube. This is Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I hope you guys are having a good start to the day. Got a lot to talk about, actually. Well, we have a fair amount to talk about, I would say. There's been quite a few developments in the last 12 hours since I've last spoken with you all, but for one, we're going to go straight to the tropics. And lo and behold, after it passed Florida, it finally decided to get its act together, and now we finally have Tropical Storm Alex. Tropical Storm, this is the 8 a.m. advisory. It has winds at 50 miles an hour and a central pressure of 995 millibars, a further drop from yesterday, 12 hours ago, when we were at 999. We have also increased the movement speed now. We're sitting at 22 miles per hour, and this will be causing increased surf and rip current risk around the eastern half of the country, especially towards the mid-Atlantic. Also, here's this little speck right here is Bermuda. This could make a very close pass to the north of it. I would even go as far as to say that I would expect tropical storm conditions to be I can't speak right now. We will be looking at tropical storm conditions to be expected within the next 12 to 24 hours, I would say. Maybe 24 to 36. But let's actually get a look at some of the let's get a look at some info here from the Hurricane Center. We'll get a look at the cone. And here's Bermuda right here. It's actually on the south side of that cone, so I mean there's chance for landfall, but it's not. It doesn't really. It doesn't really strike me as I don't know. Like I said, I'm having a hard time speaking right now. I don't know what's with me. Excuse me. Small burps. But we're on the southern side of the cone here for Bermuda. This could potentially make a direct hit, but I'm very doubtful. This would have to make a pretty sufficient shift to the south, which I just don't see happening. Furthermore, one thing about this is once it gets past Bermuda, this is going to become a complete fish storm, and it's going to die out over here, because once we get away, the further we get away from the lower 48, we get into a very hostile tropical environment. Waters aren't quite as warm out here, and we have a lot more wind shear towards the central parts of the Atlantic. Now that we've gotten that, let's check the wind speed probability, see if we got anything imminent within the next, I would say, 120 hours. And we're looking at about maybe a 50% chance of tropical storm force winds being expected in Bermuda within the next 120 hours. I do believe this will go up as this gets closer. Now, it's cool that we have Alex and all, and we hope that the impacts on Bermuda are limited. We expect them to be, but you never know. That's not the meat of this video. The meat of this video is severe weather, because look what we have here. We have an enhanced risk and an ongoing MCS right here. Not prompting any warnings at the moment. Wasn't expecting it to. Just thought I would check just to be sure and show it to you all. But we have this enhanced risk, and in this one it looks like all hazards are possible. And we're going to go into that for a second. And then if you look here, we now have a slight risk for Tuesday, and we have a day 5 slight risk as well. I'd been saying the closer we get towards the middle of the month, and in the long range forecast video, I will drop that clip right in the corner of the screen. But I've been saying right around the 9th and the 10th, there was going to be some really active weather was going to take shape. A pretty big storm system, I would say. And we'll probably go further into that tomorrow. But for right now, let's look at today's threat. It's more pressing matter here. Let's look at the hail threat, and this is the most significant threat, but this is definitely upticked greatly since last night. We now have a 30% risk of large hail extending from Woodward, Oklahoma, all the way into central Nebraska. We even have a hatched risk to go with it. Excuse me. And this extends pretty much all the way through Oklahoma City and Norman, and once again into central and even some parts of north central Nebraska. We'll look at the wind threat. It's a little bit smaller. We have McCook in play for that, Colby, and there's even a significant wind threat that extends all the way down to, once again, Norman and Oklahoma City. Tulsa, you're not out of this either. We have Wichita in play as well, all of central Kansas. We'll have to keep a close eye on that. And then last but not least, the tornado threat. And we do have a 5% area now, which is the equivalent of a slight risk. Pretty much for areas just north of Oklahoma City. Once again into central Kansas and pushing its way into central Nebraska. So we'll have to watch this real close. I mean, we also got to watch Iowa here. I'd mentioned that a couple videos ago for this day. So let's take a look at Tuesday's threat. We already had talked about tomorrow's threat. Nothing has changed there. And we'll take a look at Tuesday, and it's practically the exact same area. I don't know for sure what's going on with that, but we'll look into that a little further in tomorrow's video. I'm mainly just trying to talk about the enhanced risk and who could be in play for some dangerous weather, some potentially dangerous weather. So let's go to the Euro. Let's see just exactly what's changed about the wind field, because that's one point of interest that I always will have. Everyone acknowledges the tornado threat, so we always will go for that first. So we got this little bit of wind energy here, and we expect this to really start to kick up later into the day and in the evening around Oklahoma City, and also towards central and eastern Kansas. This looks like this really picks up late into the evening, into the overnight, which is something we don't want to see. We'll even try to get a little sounding out of this. We're hitting towards that 50 knot mark, but it looks like at this point the storm threat might be over. Let's go back a couple frames. Just not really seeing anything concrete here. May need to change it over to the HRRR here, because this is a little bit of this model's a little bit dated. We'll go to the 12Z HRRR just to make sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. I almost thought I said that backwards, crossed our I's and dotted our T's. Sheesh. That's how you know I'm still a little bit out of it. I woke up not too long ago. Alright, so we're definitely already getting a little bit different of a look from the HRRR. We already have a little bit of a stronger low-level jet around the southern plains here. This tries to pick up, but I'm not too sure if I agree with the increased tornado threat. It really does seem to ramp up late into the evening and into the overnight hours, but I think our storm threat by that point just isn't really that impressive anymore. Maybe I could check further to the east. And just kind of get a better idea of what they might be talking about. I mean, there's curves in the hordeograph, and there is a pretty impressive amount of low-level directional shear. There's a little bit of speed shear there, but just none of it seems to be matching up right now. Or at least the hordeograph isn't really showing, the hordeograph and the rest of the sounding isn't really showing me anything amazing. We'll take another look as we go later into the day. Today, these storms are really forming more or less to the north. Might be more of an overnight threat, but I think it's more of a damaging wind threat than a tornadic threat. I mean, it wasn't a super pronounced one to begin with, so like I said, I'm a little bit on the fence with that, but I do agree with the damaging wind and hail threat being as high as it is. I mean, if you look at yesterday's video, we looked at how high the lapse rates were. They were almost maxed out. I mean, I think hail is the main threat. Damaging wind's still possible. Maybe a spin up tornado. Let's hope it stays that way. Hopefully we don't get any supercells out ahead of this line. I don't really think the environment's really super conducive for it, but there is a lot of cape as well, so you never know. We'll go into Monday here, and the threat's relatively isolated until we get into the late evening hours. We might get a few stronger storms, especially towards Kansas, Nebraska, and maybe even as far north as South Dakota. Move this along, and once we get into the overnight hours, these storms lose all of their steam, and that will be the end of that, and then we'll have to look into Tuesday. But this is all I got for you guys. A little bit of a fumbly video. Morning videos aren't my strong suit, but at least we kept the video kind of short. It would have been better if I would have been more efficient, but hey, sometimes that's just how it goes. But until then, I'll probably make a video tomorrow, and I will see you then. This has been Tyre Metalhead Weatherman. Have a good day.